Right, so this video is going to be about a Twitter bot, creating a Twitter bot. The I've called myself, well, this is my handle, computational quantum theory, and the initial question that came in, and it came in from another tweet from another user. So if I do scroll, I'll scroll down to this later actually, because anyway, when I need to come back. This is the tweet from the other user who calls himself the new 6040, and just down at the bottom we kind of like agreed sort of like terms, and in terms of what this user is asking for is he's asking for an index to be made up of several things like the S&P 500, oil prices, a few other bits. I think I might have his definitions somewhere. There we go. So 20% S&P 500, 20% Nasdaq, 30% 2-year treasuries, 20% Bitcoin, 5% gold, 5% silver. And so like get the averages of those, compute them, and publish it via a tweet once every hour, ad infinitum, in perpetuity, because this is something that he can't do on his own and he's not a technical guy. So I have done similar things if I go to my own tweets, where, I mean, here already it's beginning to write over stuff that I was going to talk about, where here I just publish dates and times and number of transactions that a system that I'm running executes. So it's done like 12,741 transactions, 6,380 buys and 6,361 sells, and the number of trades per hour on average, for that hour. And that, I think I need to click on my own one actually. Let's just click on my own one. There we go. So, because then you'll see my own tweets, but you see one here, so 12741, and that was at 2:30. So that was, let's have a look. Is that about 2:15? So that was literally about probably 20 minutes ago. And previously there's the next one that was, so this was at 2:15, and this was at 1:15, and you can see like here there's 12740. So this 12, so one transaction was executed over that hour, and you can sort of like scroll back and see. So I have a bot that's already working doing this kind of stuff, and this literally it's tweeted like hundreds and hundreds of times, and you're more than welcome to follow it. I have a few thousand followers, but you're more than welcome to follow it. So this user wants to have something similar to that, but he wants to have it for the index he's made up. And what I have done is I got to the point where like I'm just going to open up my code and take a look at, to remind myself of what I did ages ago. And this is the thing about looking back at code. Things that you've built, when you haven't commented them well, or you haven't done stuff on it, or there's been upgrades to systems and so forth, all of a sudden when you go back to your work, you're unfamiliar with it, or it doesn't work, or in a way it's quite good because you can be critical of your own work, and you can like look back and go like, why the hell did I type that way? Like I should have been doing it this way, it's much more efficient. But nevertheless, that's kind of where it's at. So I was able to pull out my original code, and I'll kind of like go through it, but the original code's just behind, and I will zoom in on the font. So I was able to go past the original code, and effectively get it to run relatively quickly. So which surprised me in a way, because maybe that means I wrote reasonably good code. If you can run your code 6 months after you've used it for something, a completely different use case, that's quite good. So I've got something out here, but it just says test basically, and that's what I think the next 2 or 3 videos, because it's going to have to be in a couple of videos to get it all into like, to get it all logically set out for the users. It's not like a 10-minute job, unfortunately. It's something that you've got to muddle through, but nothing in here, and I will move off of this now, but nothing in here is particularly different. Okay, there's some connecting to Twitter effectively, and there's something about like getting credentials from a different file. But apart from that, most or a lot of the stuff that we've seen has already been done in the previous series of really simple things. For example, declaring a variable. I've set it to a date time, so we'll look at built-in functions effectively. So we'll look at importing functions, and we'll look at modules. But the fact that we understand what functions are and what classes are, I will do a video on modules too. In fact, I might slip one in possibly before this. But that's basically everything we need to know to be able to create something that's relatively sophisticated. Now, I might even leave this environment, so everything's tiny, the fonts, you can't read it at this point in time. But what I'll do just before I go off of that is I will do a little, I'll get out the pen just to show you. But over here, all of this, what looks like really complicated stuff, is just a bunch of files. That's all it is. So there's a bunch of files here. And I'm not using a Jupyter notebook. I am actually using Python code, so proper Python code. And also, not is it proper Python code, but it's a Python file as to an IPYNB file, so that's a Jupyter notebook. But I'm actually using the interactive Python, which I'll get to over here. So these are different bits of the environment. So here is just a bunch of folders. We can ignore that, and I will close this down afterwards. We can sort of like ignore this red area, and the other bit of the red area, and the other bits, I'll highlight it in red anyway. The other bit here is actually just the outline of our document here, and we'll sort of like get through to that. But where you see it says make a tweet over here, so kind of like highlight it. This make a tweet. I just actually literally renamed this method, called it make a tweet, so you can sort of like see where the methods are. And there's another one here like log tweet, logged TWT. So that's over here, and all of these little blue bits underneath it are the variables that are inside it. So we can sort of like see everything in the same type of way. Let me just expand the bottom a little bit, but not too much, because there's no need to expand it a lot. So the next part to look at in terms of where we're going to be, and this is just the environment, nothing more, this is the main part where users write their code, and it tends to be like this, these setups. You can set it up how you like, but this is where I'll be writing code. So the code is going to go in here, and over on this side here is something called interactive, the interactive notebook, and it's actually a lot better than the Jupyter notebook. It's more adaptable. It's kind of like a hybrid between a Jupyter notebook and a Python file. It's really, really convenient, and you can achieve that with just doing this hash and these 2 percentage signs. We'll get onto that. It's something a bit more detailed, but it's just very useful because you can run your code in snippets, in parts, and then you can see the code. And what I will do now is click over here. You can see there is Jupyter variables, so the variables go into the Jupyter variables, but you can also run your code in the terminal down below. And this bit down below is called the integrated terminal, which is just like a command prompt. So I could, and I probably do somewhere, I'll have a command prompt running in the background. So let me pull one up if I can find it. I have one over here. This is a command prompt or a terminal prompt that sort of like sits in the background, but it's actually running some code. So you'll see, like, depending on the time, actually you won't see code running around. Now, this one runs once now as well and does a whole bunch of statistics, but this is just a command prompt. But generally coders find it a bit inconvenient to flip between the coding part of it and then running the code and looking at it in the terminal. So one thing that was created was this integrated terminal down below. So that's where I think that's it pretty much. I'm wondering if there's anything else to show. That's the whole environment, and I'll I'll zoom in. What I will do on this particular one, because we're going to need to be doing it anyway, is I'm going to get rid of all of that, get rid of the mouse as well, get rid of the menu bar, the side menu bar, because we won't need to be seeing that really. We're not going to be jumping between files or saving files or creating them. I actually just created this one file, and here's the tabs at the top. I should basically highlight that, I guess, although we're just working in one, but here's the tab we're going to be working on at the top, you know, and there's other tabs. So I've nicked some of my code from a previous version, and I've kind of like copied it into this new file and pasted it and did a test run on some of the functions, and it ran. So I'm quite pleased about that. But here's kind of like other files that are available. So these are just tabs. Everything here, although it's in dark mode, but everything here is like a tab. So that's a tab. You know, this one here is a tab on its own, and this one here is a tab, and so forth. And there's one over there. So I've got like 5 or 6 tabs open. I'm only working on one of these at this point in time, and that's really it. So I think I'll end this one here. This is the environment. I forgot to zoom in actually, so that's the one last bit. I'm going to zoom in with a couple of control pluses. I think it is control plus to zoom in. Oh, I should get rid of, let's get rid of all of that writing at the top. So, and this is more like, because otherwise in the video you won't be able to see the text of the code. So I'm going to go through and to like rummage through afterwards on the actual video what I do to get a Twitter bot working. So this whole video is about getting a Twitter bot working, and I'll leave it there.